Hi, and welcome to another episode of Veritas Live. I'm Demetrius Malbro, your new host and cloud advocate here at Veritas, and I'm super excited to bring you today's episode where we go into around the challenges and misconceptions of migrating on-premises data to the cloud. Now, before we get into things, we always want to know, where are you watching from? And so our last episode had a lot of folks from India. So if you're joining us again from India, hello to India. And maybe, like myself, you are on the East Coast. Or you might be on the West Coast. So for everyone else, we love to hear where you are tuning in from and let us know in the comments. So go ahead and type in the chat box right now. Feel free to also ask your questions using hashtag Veritas Live. And once again, that's hashtag Veritas Live. So what would a Veritas Live episode be without providing you with an analyst quote to let you know that we're not just making this stuff up? Now, by 2025, Gartner estimates that over 95% of new digital workloads will be deployed on cloud-native platforms. And with this explosive growth in cloud computing, more enterprise organizations are migrating their on-premises data to the cloud. And now on to it. So today I'm excited to welcome Gary Garcia, who joins me from Strategic Alliances here at Veritas.
Hi, everybody. I'm Gary Garcia. I look after strategic alliances here at Veritas. Go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. And also we have a very special guest as well, the Chief Marketing Officer of Infinidat, Eric Herzog.
Demetrius, thank you. Really appreciate Veritas inviting us. And of course, I think this is about the fifth or sixth panel or video you and I have done together.
That's right.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to welcome both of you gentlemen to the show. And it also looks like we have individuals from New York, the UK, Virginia, and Portugal also being represented and watching live right now. So we appreciate your support, and we're going to try to make it super fun and interesting for you. But as you guys know, we like to kick things off here at Live with an icebreaker. And being that I know both of you are music fans, so tell me, Gary, who is your favorite band, artist, or group, and why?
I'll tell you, I'm a big fan of Tommy Emmanuel. Tommy Emmanuel is a guitar player who plays fingerstyle. He's the modern day Chet Atkins. He's just amazing. Check him out if you haven't had a chance.
Hold on, fingerstyle. I'm not quite sure.
Fingerstyle guitar. He doesn't play with a pick. He plays just with his hands on, and he makes one guitar sound like an orchestra, playing multiple parts and accompanying himself.
Got it. I'm glad you cleared that up because I thought it was a new Olympic event that individuals can participate in. But Eric, what about you? Who's your favorite group, artist, or band?
Well, I'm old school, so I sort of have three, Luther Vandross, Barry White, and Earth, Wind, and Fire. Been listening to them since I was a young teenager, well before almost everybody on this call and everyone joining us on the live stream. Probably wasn't born yet since I'm almost 70 years old. So I'm really old school and love that kind of music.
Wow. Hold on. No, you're not going to let us get off with saying that you're 70, but we'll come back to that maybe at the end. You look good for your age, by the way. But
thank you.
Let's go ahead and get right into some of the questions here. And the first topic is around challenges and misconceptions. So I want to start with you, Eric. What are the top challenges organizations encounter in this shift or extension process for workloads and data to the cloud from on-prem?
So what you're seeing today, particularly our focus at Infinidat, 25% of the global Fortune 500 buy from us. So we're very focused on the upper end, large customers, multi-billion dollars. What we're actually seeing is a slight trend for certain workloads to repatriation, coming off the cloud and going back on-prem, particularly for highly transactional workloads. At the same time, one of the key things everyone needs to understand is you really need to profile application and workload and use case. Once you do that, you can determine whether it's good in the cloud, it's good on-prem, or it's good as a hybrid cloud, part on-prem, part off-prem. There's a lot of things that customers need to do as you profile those apps and consider what are the real costs. Take, for example, if I've got a high-end SAP workload and I really need 100% availability, well, you really can't get that in the cloud. That has to be on-prem. But on top of that, as you get more availability, the cloud providers charge you. For highly transactional workloads, every time you go in and out of the cloud, you pay networking fees. So there's a lot of hidden costs that you need to look at from an availability perspective, a performance perspective, and of course, a pricing perspective. Certain workloads that don't have a lot of activity or moderate activity probably are great for cloud deployment. So that's what we're seeing in the large enterprise at Infinidat.
Awesome, awesome. And then all of those were super great insights. Eric, I appreciate you explaining that. And cost, and also just being smart, planning and strategizing about what those workloads are going to be are super helpful for organizations that are also considering, moving workloads from on-prem and into the cloud. Gary, do you have anything to add to that as well?
Listening to Eric, you spot on. The challenges are not only limited to just this idea of migration to the cloud and the challenges of egress, but applications need to be architected for the environment in which they're run. And you don't just simply expect the same performance characteristics from one kind of infrastructure to another. So I think IT practitioners need to be thoughtful about how their applications are designed and the performance attributes of the cloud that they're running on. Of course, when you're migrating to the cloud or you're egressing from the cloud, you have the challenges of, well, how long does it take to move that amount of data? Of course, net backup workload migration has the capability to manage those data movements. And then, of course, Net Backup Resiliency Platform has the ability to kind of make that a little more seamless for applications that need that rapid capability to fail from one cloud to another, on-premise or in the cloud. This is, by the way, a particular concern for workloads that have high transaction rates that demand massive scale, because those applications don't just pick up and move, right? You don't just do a copy directory command and move an application from one place to another. You really need tools that consider the needs of the entire application as those workloads migrate from cloud to cloud. And together, Infinidat and Veritas can deliver that solution.
Awesome. And I appreciate that insight as well, Gary. Also, let's talk a little bit about the storage side of things, because storage is super important. And without storage, data would be lonely, right? It wouldn't have a place to go, sit and reside and have a home. But you have to be super smart about that. So when companies are considering storage, whether it's on-prem or it's in the cloud, what is a common misconception that you've seen, or maybe you've experienced it yourself? Eric, let's start with you.
Well, first thing is that all storage is created equal, and that's just not true. When you look at storage infrastructure, not only vendor to vendor, but there's classes. There's high-end storage from many vendors, and it does certain things that mid-range storage does not do. And mid-range storage does things that entry storage does not do. They all have different price points. They all have different feature sets, characteristics such as availability. Do they have guarantees in writing? For example, we have guarantees on 100% availability, guarantees on performance, and guarantees on cyber storage resilience. We could recover a Veritas backup of 13, 14, 15 petabytes in under 20 minutes. Nobody else can do that. But that's high end. If you're in the entry space, you don't want that. Don't think you need that. So you need to profile that. The other thing, and for us, it's been very good, 32% of our customers actually are cloud providers. So for us, we are that underlying infrastructure that they rely on. And of course, from a cloud provider perspective, whether they're talking to an enterprise account, a mid-size account, or Herzog's Bar and Grill, if they're not moving data back and forth, they're not billing. So for us, because of our resiliency characteristics, our availability, and our performance capabilities, which are really unmatched according to the industry analysts, you can put more and more workloads on the physical system, and putting more and more workloads on a physical system, if you're a cloud provider, from a cloud provider perspective, cuts their own capital and operational expenditures, which means, of course, they can give better pricing to the end users, whether that be enterprise, mid-tier, or entry end users.
Wow, you're throwing out some super amazing stats there. And it really made me think, wow, that's a lot of data, a lot of movement. The performance sounds great as well. However, let's go ahead and move a little deeper into some of the storage options, because I love talking storage. As I mentioned earlier, that it's the home, the place where data resides, and that has to be the best place for data. But the question is, and I want to ask you this particularly, Gary, is what types of storage should organizations consider in the process of what we call extension, like moving from on-prem into the cloud?
Well, there are different horses for different race courses, right? And software-defined storage has certain attributes that are very useful for some kinds of workloads and situations, and then physical, on-premise, highly scalable, highly performant have different performance characteristics than cloud infrastructure. The important thing to think about is, what problem are we trying to solve? If the only problem you're trying to solve is always on and massively scalable and pay as you go, cloud storage is a good solution. But if you need privacy, if you need independence from network connectivity, if you need data sovereignty, if you need the best of all of the worlds, you might choose a hybrid system with some storage on premise that's highly performant, but you can sequester data within your own domain, and some part of the application environment running in the cloud. These are architect level decisions that IT professionals wrestle with. The important thing that we need to consider is that together we have all the tools, right? No one cloud provider has everything. No one hardware vendor has all of the parts for everybody. But together, we create really great solutions that solve not only the application performance needs, but the entire life cycle of data, right? Because data lives not just at the time it's created, it has to be managed, backed up, it needs to be cyber resilient. And together, Veritas and Infinidat, for example, we can provide all of the parts that satisfy the diverse number of use case demands that IT professionals encounter, that really solve the problems that business encounters.
Awesome. And it also makes me think as well, so you mentioned that there's no one cloud vendor that has all of the answers or everything that you need. But we know that AWS has a ton of services. So in
Absolutely.
Particular, Eric, I want to ask you this question, super important question here. What do you know about AWS Outpost and how it enhances the data lifecycle within enterprise organizations? I want to hear from you on this.
So what we do is at Infinidat, we support the Outpost. So what Outpost allows you to do is have a combination of data on and off. The Outpost physically exists on-prem, but can seamlessly traverse out to the AWS cloud infrastructure. And so as a storage vendor, we support that. So we, for example, have a large system that scales to 20 petabytes in a single 42 rack. So saving a lot on watts, slots, power, and floor that can easily integrate into Outpost. And then people who have that configuration, AWS, can move data back and forth between our high-end array connected to Outpost, going seamlessly out to AWS. And you can move things around within the AWS infrastructure. And Outpost provides that vehicle to allow you to have a combination of both on-prem and off-prem. We, of course, because we support it, allows you to use your existing storage. We have some customers that had our storage first and then decide they want some data in AWS. So they bought an Outpost and we connect to that so they can do that. You could do that as a plan. I think as Gary pointed out, this is all about application workload and use case. It's all about how you profile and what you do. And once you do that, you can figure out how to move data back and forth. In the case, of course, of AWS with support for the Outpost, you can use our existing storage. Or if you don't have our storage yet, you can get our storage, 5-time leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, by the way, for primary storage. And then you can seamlessly integrate that with Outpost and move data back and forth on the primary level.
And Demetrius, you're seeing reactions here because this is really exciting. This is exactly what I was talking about. Together, we can actually do some pretty amazing things because Veritas Net Backup is AWS Outpost service ready. So here you have a situation where you have a cloud provider, a data storage infrastructure provider, Infinidat, and Veritas coming together so that we can satisfy, for example, a number of different use cases. Right? You could have Net Backup running on an Outpost in your data center and backing up both the AWS cloud infrastructure and the on-premise data that is sequestered, tucked into your data center. Or you could have Net Backup running in the data center, backing up everything on the data center. These are the options. These are the ways that IT professionals, they have real business problems to solve. It's our job working together through alliances and through our partnerships to make it possible for the IT professionals to do the things that solve real business problems. And I think, this is one of those times, Eric, where we've really done that, right? We've really delivered a lot of options, a lot of flexibility, and proven that the whole solution works. So I just think it's really exciting.
Definitely.
Well, look, I'm going to take that excitement and run with it here. And because I am excited, because I see that Brazil and Barbados are both represented here, and they are watching and tuning in. So send some of that sunshine over here to me, and I really would love for you to engage and also type hashtag Veritas Live into the chat window. But we're going to move on, and before we close, let's look into the future ball and see where the future of data storage is going to be. So I want to hear from both of you on this last question, and that's let's make it quick here, short and sweet. What do you see as the future of data storage? Because I know where I see it headed, and DNA is actually kind of in the future for where I see it. But Gary, what about you?
Well, we've all heard and thought about storage as a service, but storage is increasing as workloads become cloud native and they become containerized and they become managed by Kubernetes in cross-cloud and hybrid cloud infrastructures. In that context, the storage service is really at the application level, that data is serving cloud native workloads that the application layer and the container layer can subscribe to. This abstraction has a lot of implications, and it creates a lot of complications for both data resiliency. How do you make the data resilient and consistent across cloud? But also for data protection. How do you maintain the association in archive with the data storage and the application? These are complicated matters, right? And they're moving quickly as IT practitioners move to cloud native application deployments and DevSecOps operation principles. And the good news is we work together, right? In this case, Infinidat and Veritas, we work together to make sure that we arrive with solutions that business can count on as they go through that journey, as IT professionals go on that journey from wherever they're at in their virtualization or physical infrastructure, on-prem, hybrid cloud, wherever they are in their journey, as they move to these newer concepts, maybe CI/CD development or DevSecOps environments, or multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, as they are on their journey to those destinations, we actually are making the investments and showing up with whole solutions that they can count on, and that's really exciting. That's what the future of data storage is really. It's storage as a service, but in a different dimension. It's at the in the software layer.
Sounds like the Twilight Zone. I appreciate you sharing that. And let's hear from you, Eric. Where do you see what's in your crystal ball for data storage?
So first of all, it's all about the hybrid cloud. So anyone who thinks that it's all on-prem or all in the cloud is not really understanding their applications, their workloads and use cases, their costs. Give you a quick story. Talked to a major university, and the CIO I knew way back when I was at EMC, and the CEO of the university said, "Why are we not all cloud?" And of course, the CEO didn't know anything about IT. So he was smart. He went to the CFO, said, "I need to borrow the stud muffin of Excel." And they went and profiled their workloads and then looked at the 4 largest clouds out there, right? AWS, Microsoft, Google, and IBM Cloud. Ran all the numbers. What they found was about 50% of the workloads were cheaper on-prem, and about 50% of the workloads were cheaper or as cost-effective off-prem. So they took that and they went with one of the service providers. They also bought a bunch of on-prem storage as well. And they did it all mathematically, counting the in and out fees, the change rates of the various applications, security issues. So that's one. It's all about hybrid cloud. Second issue for storage in particular is when you talk to a CISO or a CIO, or even a CEO. And by the way, a recent survey showed that despite what's going on with the economy and some of the travails in Europe, the third most important concern of a CEO, not the CIO, the CEO, is cybersecurity. So storage is often overlooked, and storage is a critical element in a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy. So if you don't have cyber resilient and cyber secure storage, as well as securing the network, as well as securing the apps, as well as securing the edge, if you don't have that, you're leaving a huge gap that can be exploited. By the way, the last time I looked, almost all global enterprises, the bulk of their data is sitting on storage. It's not in their heads, it's on storage. So the edge would be the laptop, of course, or the servers and whatever desktops are still left. Then you've got the core, which is usually high-end storage. And how that traverses. I would argue the cloud is a different edge, not just a destination. And there have been cloud vendors who've been attacked. It's public.
Right.
So, you got to make sure you have a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy. And if you don't include storage, both primary storage and secondary storage, backup and archive, you are missing a huge gap. And if I was the master cyber criminal, not that I am, first thing I do is attack the archive and the secondary backups, because otherwise the CIO could just say, yeah, let's just restore. We're not paying anybody any ransom. So it's a big issue.
Eric, I agree wholeheartedly about everything you just said, and that is some super fantastic insights there. And Mansoor, I appreciate your question. And I want to move on for time's sake. And Gerald from South Africa, first and foremost, thank you for tuning in. I'm not quite sure what time it is there, but I appreciate you being up and alert and also engaging with us. But we're out of time. But before we sign off, I want everyone to be sure to check out Eric Herzog's blog, Tech Trends for 2023, where he goes into a lot more details on some of the things that we talked about here today. And you can also find a link to that below. And last but not least, wrapping up my first official episode as host of Veritas Live here, I want to point everyone to our Veritas Solution Days. Now, hit the link below to find out to find one near you, and that we have them in over 26 cities across Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and also Africa. And this is a great chance for you to connect with technical experts on how to overcome all of your biggest data challenges. So thanks again for joining us today. It was a pleasure hosting you all. And any closing words from you, Eric and Gary? Eric, I'll go with you. Make it short and sweet, okay?
Mine is short and sweet. If you want a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy for your corporation, you better include storage, backup storage, archive storage, and primary storage. You leave it out, you're leaving yourself exposed. And it is one of the top 3 issues that the CEO of your company thinks about.
All right, that was sweet, but I don't know if it was short, Eric. I'll forgive you this time. Gary, what do you have to say?
Well, I'm coming at this from the perspective of strategic alliances. And from my perspective, one of the things that IT professionals need most are solutions, right? And that means technology providers that know how to work together. Data security is a team sport. Data storage is a team sport. Veritas has a lot of solutions, a lot of capabilities by ourselves, but without infrastructure that's hosting data, we have a hard time doing our job. And with partners like Infinidat, and AWS, we're able to do amazing magic for IT professionals and for business.
All right, Eric, you are redeemed. Gary took just as long, but I forgive you both. But tune in on February the 28th for that episode, the next episode of Veritas Live. It's going to be an amazing episode. And until then, stay secure and back up often.